162 games down, and the Mariners are still your AL West champs. We now know who the Mariners might be playing in that division series since they do have the bye. And we're going to talk about the playoff picture as a whole and who we would rather play between the Tigers and the Guardians. We're going to give you guys our FanDuel favorites before talking about just some things that have been said today, which is the last day of the season, about Brian Wu, about Bryce Miller, about Cal Raleigh, and kind of what's to be expected with them going into the postseason. Is Brian Wu going to be on the American League Division Series roster? All that and more coming up in episode 233 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network and presented by FanDuel. And this is the Jen Mueller episode of the podcast. Jen announced today that with Root Sports kind of going bye-bye, that she is stepping away from baseball reporting. You'll still be able to find her on the Seahawks sidelines, but Jen has spent a ton of time with the Mariners over the years. So shout out to Jen. Excited to, still see her around Seattle and whatnot, but it's going to be a bummer to see her leave, along with, there could be a lot of people leaving with the Root Sports conundrum going on. Nonetheless,
dude, like if it's Brad Adam going too, like, I don't know. They said that a lot of the Mariners broadcast will largely stay the same because they're employed by the Mariners, less about their Root Sports employees. But Jen, Brad, I think, God, there's one more. No, because maybe it was Dave Valley who then got promoted into the booth. It felt like this season with
kind of same with Angie.
Yeah, right. Like they had this happen last year. Who knows with what Angie and Dave Valley would have looked like in the terms of their role within the team this season. And we won't really know much until, I think, well into the offseason, really what's happening with that. So we're not going to touch on it a ton, but again, big kudos to Jen for, I think it was 19 years with the Mariners as far as being with Root Sports and Fox Sports Northwest, etc. So I think that was in her post. So again, cheers to her and whatever she's got going on next. Don't really need to touch on the Mariners' final series against the Dodgers either, Colton. Not a lot happened. Cal didn't hit any more home runs. L. Cal Raleigh. L. They lost all 3 games. They came out flat, Colton. Dang you for encouraging and condoning their bat. Guys, those games didn't matter. They still played. The first 2 games were relatively competitive. The latter, not so much, with Kershaw making his final start of his regular season career. I think he's going to be left off of the wild card roster. So,
I mean, it makes sense. He pitched today. His 5th day wouldn't be till Friday. So it makes sense.
Exactly. Which is why heading into the wild card series, a lot of the starters, if they pitched, over the last 2 or 3 days, the likelihood of them being on that team, depending on how good they are, of course, is kind of up in the air. But we know for the series that we as Mariners fans will be paying the most attention to, the Tigers and the Guardians. The Guardians won the division. Surprise, insane that they made that large of a comeback and rightfully took what was theirs at the end of the season over the Tigers, because frankly, they were the better team for the last month. And you're frozen. There you go. You're not frozen anymore. You were a stop motion animation there for a second. In game 1, it is already confirmed that Tarek Skubal is the game 1 starter because he did not pitch on short rest in the final game of the season to try and win the whatever, right? And he's had some comments about the postseason and the clinching process and what the seeding matters. He's kind of the dude he's just a gamer, and he's going to go out there and get the ball in game 1 no matter what. And whether it be on the road or at home in Detroit, it does not matter to him because he is Matt Hasselbeck. He wants the ball. He wants to not allow the other team to score. It doesn't really work. And it's kind of a hard, sentence saying to attribute to baseball because it's not really how it works. But Guardians have not announced their game 1 starter yet. because I think they were just kind of seeing where they were kind of when they would clinch, how they would clinch, if they would have home field advantage or not. And I looked at the last turn through the rotation. Gavin Williams last pitched on the 23rd. He's been their best starter on the season. I think he gets the ball in game one opposite Tarek Skubal. And
yeah.
Gavin Williams' last 2 starts out, both against the Tigers, on the 17th and the 23rd. His first one on the 17th, 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. Good start. The 23rd, 6 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned, 1 home run given up, 2 walks, 12 strikeouts. Very good start. Gavin Williams should be the Guardians' game 1 starter, in my opinion. Not only just based around the fact that he went out there against the Tigers the last 2 times and pitched well, but he's just been their best starter on the year, and it's going to be a fun series. I'm glad that the Mariners don't have to participate in a wild card series. I like the idea that they're getting rest. I know some people would say that they'd prefer them to play in a wild card series to keep them their bodies moving and keep the repetitions up, but with how strenuous this season was for a lot of the guys and the injuries that they all kind of endured throughout the season, I'm happy that they get a bye because we get to chill and not be super, super stressed out. But what is it, game 1 on Tuesday?
Tuesday at 1:08 p.m. Eastern for ALDS wildcard. That one anyway. The other ALDS wildcard is going to be Boston.
Why are you saying ALDS wildcard?
You're right. Yeah, the other American League wildcard is Boston at New York, so that's pretty fun.
Yep.
I think that's a pretty fun matchup. The other matchups around the league in the wild card: San Diego at Chicago, facing the Cubs, and then Cincinnati against the Dodgers. Dude, it was Sunday was a crazy day around baseball. We saw the Mets complete their collapse and completely end up missing the postseason after having the best record in baseball in June.
Yep.
And they missed the postseason. The Reds come storming back, take that spot. Both teams in Ohio have made the playoffs. I'm just saying. Yeah, San Diego versus the Cubs should be fun, but we obviously need to focus on the wild card series between Detroit and Cleveland. And Joe, I'm interested. Who would you rather play? Because there's 2 sides of the coin, right? On one side, you have the Tigers, who were really good all year until the Mariners broke them going into the All-Star break. On the other hand, you have the Guardians, who, I mean, have gotten really, really hot, but they still have a pretty, like, one of the worst offenses in all of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's a lot of differences between these 2 teams. I think offensively, I think Detroit's a better team. They also have Tarek Skubal, but they've been playing horribly. Now, if they win the wild card series, do they get it figured out and then they're back to where they were? Maybe. But at the same time, the Guardians play an incredibly annoying brand of baseball. They are the team that is going to nickel and dime you until eventually you're just going to be down 3-0 and be like, what the hell just happened?
Mm-hmm.
Who would you rather play in the division series?
As crazy as it is to say, I would rather play Detroit, even though you're going to have to face Skubal once, if not twice, in that series, depending on how long it goes. And again, you can shrug off the back-to-back American League Cy Young all you want. It is still Tarek Skubal. Yes. Did the Mariners beat him? Yes. Okay, I get it. The Mariners beat him. Twice. They beat, for every Cy Young he's going to win in 2024 and 2025, they beat him, okay? The Tigers have been a below-average offense in the second half. Javi Baez, you remember, like, all-star Javi Baez?
Yeah, dude.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, and then he just fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah, dude. His second half stats are terrible. He only had 1 home run in the second half. His batting average was 222. His batting average in the first half was 275. Like, his WRC plus dipped to 85 on the entire season because of how poor his second half was. Just in the second half alone, based around, like, team WRC plus. Look at Seattle. 6th in all of baseball with a 112. Detroit is 21st with a 94. And Cleveland We've hated on them and their offensive, I guess, lack of prowess, their offensive profile. They're 25th in all of baseball with a 90 WRC plus. Only 4 points worse than the Tigers, right? And of course, that is, you think about, oh, that makes sense. The Tigers have been not as good in the second half, and the Guardians were better in the second half. Yes, I think a lot of that stuff checks out. The Guardians have the best team ERA in all of baseball in the second half, a 3.36 ERA. On the entire season, the Guardians have, I think, the third best bullpen ERA in all of baseball. The advantage that the Tigers have is that they're better offensively, in theory. The advantage that the Guardians have is that they're better as a whole on the pitching side. Who do I think the Mariners can go toe to toe with better and shut down easier? The team that has less pitching upside as a whole, who has offense that has been struggling. It's an easy no-brainer to me that you'd want to play the Tigers in the division series, the team that lost their division when it was
15 games up.
Yeah, all but a foregone conclusion, it felt like, that the Tigers were the American League Central champs. And here we are, and Detroit Dojo has to buy a Mariners jersey, and it feels good, doesn't it, Colton?
It really does. For those of you that don't tune into the streams, Detroit Dojo, a friend of ours, he comes into the stream. He's from Detroit. He's a Tigers fan. And we made a bet when the Mariners were down in the dumps on that 2-7 road trip, I think it was. And we said, hey, whichever team has the better record at the end of the year, the other person has to buy that team's jersey. And the Mariners came through for me. And therefore, he has to buy a jersey of the Mariners. I think he's picking between Cal Raleigh and Brian Wu. That's kind of what the chat said to pick from. So, yeah, I completely agree. The Tigers, again, they have Tarek Skubal. Cool. The Guardians have Tanner Bybee, Gavin Williams, Slade Ciccone. Those are three pretty damn good pitchers. They're not as good as Skubal, but they are much better. When you look at the Tigers depth chart, Tarek Skubal, Jack Flaherty,
sure,
Casey Mize, like Keeter Montero, You look at their bullpen. Who are you afraid of in their bullpen? Kyle Finnegan, maybe Will Vest, Paul Sewald. Like, I don't know. I don't know who I'm worried about in that bullpen, truthfully. I just think the Tigers overall, especially when you have home field advantage in T-Mobile Park, you want the team with the better offense because the park directly suppresses offense. And they're a team that, can rely on some home runs, guys like Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, etc. Whereas the Guardians, they don't need to hit the ball over the wall. I think they have the least home runs in all of baseball. Is that true? Or pretty close, something like that?
I can find out for you.
And they're going to be a team that's going to just string 10 hits together, and all of a sudden they're going to be up 5-0. And it's going to be out of nowhere. And we saw that happen when the Mariners played them in Cleveland last time. So yeah, I think that the Tigers overall are the team that you should be rooting for in the American League Division Series or wild card. God, I did it again. I'm just, the wild card is not even a part of my mind because we're division champs. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I truly do think the Mariners can beat either of these teams. And they had the season series versus both of them this year. So, I mean, pick your poison. But personally, I would rather see the Tigers.
The Guardians had 168 home runs. It was 20th in all of baseball. So bottom third. The Pirates hit 117.
Wow.
I'm going to see something. Just completely not relevant to our conversation. 117 season home runs for the Pirates.
Are we guessing who had the most?
No. In the first half, 10 teams had more than them in their entire season. Boston 122, the Mets 124, Detroit 124, the Athletics 127, the Mariners 136, the Angels 139, the Diamondbacks 141, the Cubs 142, the Dodgers 145, and the Yankees at 151. All out-homered the Pirates in the first half.
Month. Oh, first half. Oh, okay. Oh, I was going to say.
First month, Colton.
I
need you to
really cool.
I need you to clean out those ears over there, buddy.
Sorry, man.
Maybe I need to enunciate.
Yeah, it's your fault for sure.
It's my fault for sure. I agree, though. Both teams in the wild card that you're lining up against. You have the season series against. I think you have the ability to beat both of them. What was the strength for the Tigers last year was Skubal and then the death bullpen. It worked. And the Cinderella gritty Tigers, it's not the same team anymore. Like, they're not that same vibes team. And the Guardians, I think, are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not necessarily scared of either team offensively. I sorted by more than 100 plate appearances for both Tigers and Guardians. As far as, it's not even qualified batters. Like, there are guys like Jahmai Jones, 150 plate appearances, is the leading WRC plus for either team on the full season. 159 WRC plus. Jose Ramirez, pencil him in. He's a future Hall of Famer. 133 WRC plus. Riley Green had a good season, a 121 WRC plus. There are only 11 players between both teams with 100 plate appearances or more that have a WRC plus over 100. Both of these teams' offense are relatively anemic. And I'd be willing to bet that the Tigers, some of them, buoyed by the first half. You talk about Javier Baez. He fell off. He's got an 85 WRC plus. He doesn't even count towards that. But of the top 11, there's only 2 Guardians. 9 of them are Tigers. So it's like, you know what you're getting yourself into when you face either team. And it's really hard to tell who's the favorite going into it right now because of the way that the rest of the season played out. But there are money lines available for the wild card series over on FanDuel. Taking a look at some of our FanDuel favorites right now. Of course, the Tigers, they are the favorite right now at minus 164, even on the road, even with how poor their last month went and how good the Guardians were. It is hard to deny the boost that Tarik Skubal can give you. And I will say, I think once the Guardians pitcher is announced, it will probably narrow the gap. I don't think it's going to be as big of a gap as minus 164 for the money line for the Tigers and plus 138, like that big of a discrepancy for the underdogs there for the Guardians. But maybe it will, and maybe they just value Skubal in the playoffs all that much more as far as pedigree is concerned and what having a Cy Young on the mound can do for you. When it's Gavin Williams opposite Tarik Skubal, I would say that I would think this is probably closer to like minus 130 for the Tigers and plus like 115-ish for the Guardians as far as money line is concerned. But that's all they got out for us right now. It is Sunday, so I don't expect the FanDuel lines and over-unders and spreads to be readily available for the wildcard series until tomorrow. I'm not done with FanDuel, Cole. I'm just saying for that specific game.
They do have the whole wild card series as a whole, and they do have the Tigers as favorites. Now both teams are at minus money. You have the Tigers at minus 112 and the Guardians at minus 104 in the wild card round, which I find pretty interesting, especially with how well the Guardians have played versus the Tigers over the past month. They swept them and then they won a series versus the Tigers. I am shocked that honestly, I'm shocked that the Tigers are the team that is the favorite here, because the Guardians, in my opinion, they're the better team right now. And they've proven that now maybe you could say the Tigers underperformed, right? And they did. They absolutely did. I just am shocked to see. And if I look through here, is that the only series? And it looks like it might be the only wild card series that is both teams are at minus money.
Yeah.
So nobody knows. They're like, no friggin' idea, dude.
No idea, dude.
The Dodgers versus the Reds. Dodgers are favorited at minus 245. You look at the Cubs versus the Padres.
That's the other minus one.
Yeah, right. Minus 124 for the Cubs, which is, I get that. And then the Yankees and the Red Sox minus 178 for the Yankees. So yeah, both teams in the wild card. Nobody knows. No, everyone, that's a toss up, which is crazy to me because of how close it came down to at the end of the year. Over on FanDuel, they do still have the World Series odds right now with the Mariners in the second spot. They actually put the Dodgers further back at plus 600. They were tied with the Mariners last time we looked at this.
I know.
They put them at plus 600, even though the Dodgers just swept the Mariners. So Yeah, interesting, but the Mariners are still at plus 550 and they're at plus 200 to win the American League pennant. So the Mariners are still sitting in a good spot right now. But overall, I mean, what?
I, they just put on there World Series MVP. And I'm just looking through some of it, and it's just like Shohei's at plus 1,300, Judge is at plus 18, Cal is at plus 1,800. Like, it's never going to be, it's not often the main guy. Julio at plus 3,500. I think I saw Switch just because he's, Dom Canzone FC, like Dom Canzone World Series MVP. So I was scrolling to try and find his name, and I haven't even seen it yet. Like, I don't even know if he's going to be on here, but I got George Kirby's at plus 10,000, Victor Robles plus 20,000, JP Crawford plus 20,000. Like, it's just,
we all know who should be number one, right?
Who should be number one, Colton?
It should be Randy Arozarena. Playoff Randy is back, baby. We're getting playoff Randy starting on Saturday. Randy Arozarena is a showman, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the playoffs this year.
Let me find his name. Okay, plus 6,500. So, World Series playoff Randy from 2020. Maybe he makes a glorious comeback in this one, and you can, that's a huge payout if you're really taking it over. But of course, do it responsibly. Talk about big payouts and whatnot. Make sure you're doing it responsibly. If you are doing a little sports gambling, sports betting, just want to throw that back out there.
Yeah, well done. Well done. Very responsible of you, Joe. There's been some interesting comments made by Jerry DiPoto, by some of the players on the roster as well. Well, I think we start here with Brian Wu. What?
You don't want to you just said interesting comments by the players, and I think there's one comment in particular that might be the most interesting.
Yeah, you know what? Feel free. Yeah, let's start with that one.
We should just read that one off rip. Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. This one is from Cal Raleigh.
Yeah.
And we know Cal. I mean, he's had his share of one-liners recently, and this one, Joe, go ahead.
It's a doozy. So, Cal Raleigh does not plan on doing much resting beyond Monday. This is from Ryan Divish. He has often said that staying active and playing almost every day helps fight off soreness. Now, keep in mind, they've got 2 scrimmages lined up on Wednesday and Thursday, 6-inning scrimmages. Cool. There's fans can attend for $10, and there's going to be those proceeds go to Mariners Fan Care or Mariners Care Foundation. So, like, that's awesome. So, Cal's, he's staying loose. And a quote to represent that very well. To me, motion is lotion. Staying in that routine, staying moving, staying strong, making sure you get your workouts in and doing everything you need to do, trying to stay as crisp as possible. Colton, would you say, in your heart of hearts, that motion is lotion?
I mean, how could I deny it? If the big dumper says that motion is lotion, all right, he caught a little motion.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
You got motion, twin.
Yeah, that's like wowee. Yeah, that's definitely one of the quotes of all time. Like, what do you think the reaction was when he said that? Everyone was like, what is this guy talking about? What did you say? Yeah.
I think that's just Cal though. It's not he didn't say that to get a reaction. That is something he genuinely just like, yeah, motion is lotion, baby. He could have just said that and then walked away. And I think everyone been like,
mic drop.
Yeah, motion is lotion, Cal. You're right.
Yeah, you can't argue with the big dumper. You just can't. There is some concern still, obviously, with Brian Wu. Now, ultimately, we know he's dealing with that pectoral tightness. He has this week off. He's been out since the Astros series. There's talk that he could possibly be held off the ALDS roster, but we're not really going to know until he throws off of a mound into live hitters sometime this week. According to what Brian Wu said, he feels great. And the trainers were not particularly concerned, and there's a good deal of optimism that he will be a part of that rotation. I found it interesting, though, that because in this article from Kramer, they mentioned that he probably would have started game 1, which he's been your best starter, but the Mariners might hold him out until game 3 at the earliest.
Yeah.
We thought maybe game 2, but game 3 at the earliest, dealing with this pectoral tightness. He has been the Mariners' best road starter with a 3.4 ERA. So I guess it kind of makes sense. Game 3 will obviously be played on the road, with the first 2 being played in Seattle. Another quote here from Dipoto says, "It won't be necessarily geared toward who's your number 1 starter, but who do we feel is the most rested, best position, and where does Brian slot in? And we can't really make the other decisions until we have a better idea of where Brian will slot." It's interesting because, again, Brian Wu is incredibly important to this team in the playoffs, and losing him would be a huge blow. I think having him in game 3 is fine. If you decide to go either George and Logan or Luis and Logan in games 1 and 2, I think that'd be totally fine.
There's a quote later on, and I don't know if it's in that same Kramer article. I'm looking at one on Seattle Sports from Zach Harris, but later on, Dipoto continues on saying, "I think Logan had a really nice September and rose up. You can't be much better than George has been in this last handful of starts with his stuff playing out the way that it has. And from the time when we got to Atlanta and when the rest of the team picked it up, I'm not sure if anyone picked it up more than Luis Castillo did." So in just going along with that, I think the Mariners rotation has gotten right. I'll put air quotes around that, at the right time, where you can I feel confident with whoever they go with in games 1 and 2 at home. You can make the argument that Castillo has to start a game at home because his road splits are atrocious. If you go with that logic, and I said this the last time we talked about it, to not get cute, where you should probably just start your 2 best guys in games 1 and 2 to give yourself a 2-game lead in the division series where you only need 3 wins to advance. And of course, that gets a little bit more confusing when Brian Wu is not available, assuming he's not available. But if he's slotted in and slated to start game 3, I think it's a pretty safe call that Logan Gilbert is your game 1 starter of the American League Division Series, I think. And with the time in between starts, like, anybody can start game 1. It doesn't really matter, who pitched last, whatever. So I do think it'll be Logan in game 1, just given they want to make sure Brian Wu is as healthy as possible. And I don't know who should get the ball in game 2, if it's Luis or George. I really don't have a strong opinion on either of them. I know in his Seattle career, his tenure, Luis has not started a game at home for the Mariners in the postseason. He started both games on the road. He started one in Houston, one in Toronto, but George has started one at home and threw a gem against the Astros in the division series in game 3. So history would tell you that George can do it. He could start game 2, but is this season and the way that both of these starters have looked on the road, like, it makes it all that much more of an interesting decision. I think most obvious decision, though, is that Bryce Miller will not be in the starting rotation. He will be making appearances out of the bullpen more than likely. And there was a quote from Kramer at the end of the game today. And Bryce Miller obviously started the final game today, gave up two run home runs, I think, in this one to Freddie Freeman, I think the other to Hae-Sung Kim.
Yep.
But from Kramer over on Twitter, Bryce Miller said he hasn't yet had extended conversations with Mariners management about his usage/role in the postseason, other than to, quote, be ready to go early in the series, close quote. Jerry Dipoto said this morning that one of our starters will be used in the bullpen. Bryce Miller is he is the one. He is the one that makes the most sense to be used out of the bullpen, given his injury this season and the amount of innings and just being able to ramp him up. He's also been the least effective starter. I think, one, his stuff can play up out of the pen relatively well, and that just makes sense for his role going forward the rest of this postseason.
Yeah, I think that Bryce, I mean, like you mentioned, he makes the most sense for all the reasons that you stated, but also simply because, like you said, his stuff can play up quite a bit. We know that Bryce's fastball is kind of his bread and butter. And he said, if I know it's one inning, I'll just go full launch, just let it rip, which is exactly what you would need out of him. The construction of the playoff roster is going to be very interesting because it's back down to 26 players. So obviously the two guys, that right now the Mariners are carrying 28. They made an interesting move prior to the final game of the season, sending Logan Evans down and bringing up Miles Mastroboni. It makes sense. Obviously, Evans wasn't going to pitch today, so you may as well roll with the extra position player. But an interesting quote here from Jerry Dipoto. He says, those last spots, talking about the roster, the great likelihood is we will go position player heavy. Because of the nature of a short series and the fact that at some point one of our starters will be used in the bullpen, which we feel like really helps that group back there. Yeah, so if you're moving one of your starters to the bullpen, you have 4 starting pitchers. You're moving one of your guys to the bullpen. You could probably leave off a few guys from your bullpen that, I don't know who it would be. Like, could it be Luke Jackson? It could be anybody. You know what I mean? Does Logan Evans come back up for the postseason? Who knows? Right. But in all likelihood, you're not going to carry 13 pitchers because you're in a shorter series. You're probably not going to use them for the most part. You're going to want your highest leverage, your best guys in there. So obviously Munoz, Brash, Bizzardo, Spire, like all those guys are safe. But the fringe guys could be the ones that are the odd men out in this one. And do the Mariners carry 3 catchers? Do they carry Harry Ford in the playoffs? Maybe it gives them some leeway to, pinch hit if you need to for Mitch Garver at some point during a game, if need be. Do they bring Miles Mastroboni with them? I think it makes sense to bring Mastroboni with them, especially because apparently he's playing first base today.
Yeah.
I was
Of
so
all
confused.
places.
I'm like, wait a second.
Because Rayleigh was in center for Julio getting a day off, but
right.
Yeah, I think carrying 3 catchers is not something I will be surprised. I honestly think it's just Bryce Miller to the bullpen for Luke Jackson. I think having Emerson Hancock with how well he looked in his start in the series finale against the Rockies on Thursday, he looked really good. 4 innings to it, 7 strikeouts, lower arm angle, the sweeper, slider, whatever you want to call it technically, was dancing. It was looking crazy good. So I think if it's just Miller to the bullpen for Jackson, I think you're probably looking at the Mariners bullpen of Munoz, Brash, Bizzardo, Spire, Ferguson, Vargas, Hancock, and then Miller. And then you have your 4 starters of Logan, Georgia Luis, and then Woo. Like, however it shakes out there. And that gives you 12, so you can go 14 position players. And if it is Mastroboni, who provides you a lot of flexibility around the infield and the outfield and provides you some legs off the bench, I mean, it's not... There are randomly going to be guys that can make an impact at any given point. I don't remember what team signed him, but someone signed Billy Hamilton to a minor league deal.
Yep.
They were just having him in AAA and just having him run, just stealing bags, just getting his legs loose, because motion is lotion, baby. You never know where you get called upon to have a big moment. And if Miles Mastroboni pinch runs for Mitch Garver in a situation, then you need Harry Ford to catch, or you need Harry Ford to do something. I doubt there's ever going to be, there are going to be very few situations, Colton, in this postseason, at least I hope, where Cal Raleigh is not the one with the gear behind the plate. So,
yep. I mean, the only situation you could maybe see that be the case, could be if you have to face Scooble, you know what I mean, in a game versus the Tigers. But even then, like, I'm sure Garver's in that lineup, but he's probably the DH more than likely, because like you just said, you're going to want Cal's, his experience back there, and he's the guy, and he says that he prefers catching over DHing. So I think that it'll be very interesting to see how they decide to rest some of these guys during the postseason. The nice part is that there are baked in off days in every series. So in the division series, you have the 2 games at home, you have an off day, and then you would have the first game on the road.
Yep.
And then you'd have the second game on the road the next day, and then an off day. And if you needed to go to game 5, you would then play game 5. So yeah, there's baked in off days throughout. And so the Mariners will probably just be starting their guys every single game, specifically Cal behind the dish. So I think that's just what makes the most sense moving forward. And if they do decide to carry like 3 catchers and Harry Ford, maybe you could go like a late inning to play replacement if you're worried about Cal, like maybe he's hurting that day or something, if you have to.
Sure.
But I honestly, I don't see a situation where Harry makes his roster.
Yeah, it's just a safety net situation, I think, for him specifically, but that's the benefit of having a core 1 through 9 that you feel really good about, where you don't really have to worry about who are the bench pieces necessarily. They matter, but they don't matter as much when the core of your roster has looked as good and as consistent as the Mariners 1 through 9 is right now. And realistically, like, it could be Harry Ford and Cole Young aren't on this roster, because Polo's probably your second baseman as it stands right now, especially if it's game 1 against Scooble, or, you know, if that's how it shakes out. I mean, you're not playing Dom, so Garver's your DH and Polo's your second baseman. It's going to be very few and far between at bats for Cole Young and Harry Ford, if they even make the division series roster. You can see a championship roster maybe because it's a longer series, but you got to get there first.
Yeah, I think that more than likely you're going to see just Garver and Dom be the two DHs in this series specifically. I think that Polo will play every game over at second base. It just makes the most sense. I don't think there's, I mean, the nice part about the way the Mariners roster is currently constructed is there's not a ton of platoons right now. You know, I mean, you could talk about a platoon in right with like Victor and with Dom, but I think Victor, you know, is fine versus righties too. So I'm not too worried about that. Other than that, you don't really have a whole lot of platoons. You're going to play Josh Naylor every single day. You're going to play Polo every single day, JP every day, Gino every day. Like, there's no platoons. And so the one platoon you can have is that DH where you don't have to worry about defense. It doesn't matter. And so having Garver, having Canzone, I mean, if you want to like throw a Luke Raley in there, obviously he hasn't been great, but if you need a clutch bunt or something like that, then you go to Luke Raley. If you need a money bag, you go to Miles Masterboni. If you need a really good long at bat, you go to Leo Rivas. Like,
there you go.
The Mariners are going to have those options on the roster, and I think that that's what makes them so dangerous in the postseason. I would say they are one of the top 3 teams in terms of how well-rounded they are in the entire postseason. I think the Phillies are up there, obviously, and I would say, I don't know. I actually don't. You know what?
Dodgers?
I'm saying they're top 2.
Okay.
I don't think the Dodgers are as well-rounded as the Mariners. Honestly, I don't like their offense is good. I think that the Mariners 1 through 9, obviously they have Shohei, they have Freddie Freeman, so they're very top heavy.
Yeah.
But I think 1 through 9, the Mariners have a longer lineup.
Okay. I don't have any qualms with that. It's just a matter of when you get to the postseason, it's a completely different ball game where Dodgers won last year. A lot of the teams that are in the postseason this year have been there before, or they have guys that have been there before. So obviously the Mariners have players that have been there before. A couple of guys from the 2022 team. Josh Naylor's been in the postseason, obviously. I just don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I don't want to count any chickens, because you got to play each series as its own entity, and don't let the moment become too big. Of course, they have grand vision, a grand vision of their eyes are set. They know that they have one job that they want to accomplish, and they've made that abundantly clear in a lot of the post-clinch comments about, you know, they've not shied away from talking about the World Series. And I think that's a positive thing. It means that they're not scared of the moment. They're not scared of the gravity of the situation. And I think that stems a lot from, it starts up top, I think, with Dan, preparing them in terms of, you know, what to carry into the dugout, into the clubhouse, onto the field, and how to prepare yourselves mentally for that every single day. And I think that that's a good base, a good foundation for this roster. And when you talk about how well-rounded it is and how some of these guys can be postseason heroes if they rise to the right occasion, they have a strong base underneath them to where they don't have to rise too high. They don't have to jump on this pedestal that's well out of their reach. They're on a pretty solid base already. And I think that this team likely has the potential, the best potential in our cognitive lifetimes, to make a serious run at it. Again, it's just about winning the game on the day, playing the team in front of you, and taking it one series at a time, though.
Yeah. You mentioned not counting your chickens before the eggs hatch. So what's your World Series predictions? Who you got?
Let's go Mariners Phillies.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Mariners, they literally feel like the two best teams.
Yeah,
they truly do. I think that Mariners Phillies makes the most sense. I think the one thing that, honestly, the one thing the Mariners have that maybe or don't have that a lot of the other teams do is just an experienced manager in that situation. You know what I mean? And Dan, I mean, again, Dan can probably rise to the occasion. It'll just be interesting to see what kind of moves he decides to make. But a few quick programming notes here. I'm going to be trying to stream after like all the wild card games. Not after each one, but like at the end of the day, like talking about what all happened in the wild card. I'll try to stream after every game. We're going to have 3 podcasts coming out this week. We're going to have one coming out, obviously this one. And then we're going to have the, like, after the wild card is settled podcast coming out talking about who the Mariners are going to be playing in the division series, and then we'll have our big division series preview coming out on either Friday or Saturday. So it's go time, man. I mean, I'm gonna enjoy, and as you guys should too, I'm gonna enjoy this week. I'm gonna watch some baseball that I don't necessarily have to care about. I mean, I have to care a little bit, but you know, I'm just gonna chill. And you guys should too. But we appreciate you guys watching episode 233 of the Hit It Here podcast presented by FanDuel, and go Mariners.